Sunday, the 2nd of February's Thought for the Day. The title of today's thought is As a Living Sacrifice. In Genesis, we are reading of Moses' encounters with Pharaoh, and today we saw Moses demand we must go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he tells us. Chapter 8, verse 27. Over the next few days we will read of the drama of the plagues. We pondered the example of Pharaoh's tactic of first agreeing and then denying Moses' request. So Moses says, "Let not Pharaoh cheat again." Verse 29. Egypt had come to depend, we conclude, on the enslaved Israelites as a really significant factor in their economic well-being. This compares with today as a most important factor in decision-making process for governments. But it rarely leads to the wisest decisions, especially in this godless world. As we read through Exodus, we learn about the whole system of worship which God gave to the people, starting with the 10 Commandments. With the mountain smoking and thunder and lightning, Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear or the awe of him may be before you, that you may not sin." Chapter 8, verse 18 and 20. A system of sacrifice and offerings for sin is then instituted. This largely revolved around the sacrifice of animals. However, in most cases, these then became food for the priests and the people. Sadly, as the years passed, their spiritual perception and service to their God and his wondrous deliverance of them from slavery faded. Sacrifice became more and more a ritual. In the New Testament, we have the ultimate sacrifice, that of God's own Son, our Lord Jesus. The first converts on the day of Pentecost were cut to the heart, says Acts chapter 2, verse 37. But did that sacrifice of heart last? Our chapter today in Romans chapter 12 sees Paul making an impassioned plea about this. The chapter starts, "I appeal to you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God." All those trying to be genuine believers do say and even think needs to arise from an earnest desire to such a sacrifice. Notice how Paul puts it, to be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God. Verse 2. We must not fall into the trap of creating rituals to keep and to follow similar to the pattern of that later developed in the wilderness. Rather, as we read in Hebrews 9 and verse 14, how much more will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God, purify our conscience from dead works to serve the living God and make us into a living sacrifice, having an attractive, purified conscience. Well, thank you for joining us for today's Thought for the Day. We pray that you found it helpful. And remember, as you go about your daily work, do all to the glory of God, acknowledging that the antidote to sin is not only not to sin, but to do good. Please join us again tomorrow for another Thought for the Day. God bless.